Attorney General Jason Miyares releases the findings of a year-long investigation into the Virginia Parole Board.
Now, during the Northam years, the board was accused of releasing inmates with little regard for victims and their families. Ashley Hendricks tells us what this investigation has now uncovered.
137, that's the number of murderers, rapists, and armed robbers this report says were released in violation of long-standing rules.
What happened here was a clear abuse of power. What happened here was the epitome of putting criminals first and victims last.
Attorney General Jason Miyares released details Wednesday of a year-long investigation into the Virginia Parole Board and its former board chair, Adrian Bennett. The report finds between February and April of 2020, the Virginia Parole Board violated state law at least 149 times with Bennett's permission.
She released them from supervision and in some cases personally corresponded with the offenders about their discharge, eliminating entirely their local parole officer.
Bennett's administrator at the time, Laura Hall, told investigators that Bennett knew this was against policy. Victims and their families soon complained they were never told that an inmate was up for release.
Their attacker, their assailant, the person that held the gun up to the head to a young clerk at a gas station, their lives are turned upside down because their assailant should have been behind bars.
One chilling case in particular, Vincent Martin, who was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Richmond police officer Michael Connors in 1979. In hopes of regaining the public's confidence, Miyares recommends enhancing ethics rules for parole board members, increasing size and transparency, and stronger victim notification requirements. And if not for the statute of limitations, Miyares says Bennett would be criminally charged for these violations. Right now, Bennett presides as a judge in Virginia Beach. Miyares says it's now up to the General Assembly to decide if Bennett will be impeached. On your side tonight in Richmond, Ashley Hendricks, NBC 12 News.
Ashley,